Whenever we're flying, it seems like there's either too much to do or not enough to do. We call this our workload, right? So in this section, we're going to take a look at workload management, and we're going to look at some strategies on how to deal with workload. Particularly so, of course, in the times when it becomes, very, very high. As I look at this picture here, I'm thinking, hey, there's nobody in this airplane. Hey, right on, the workload's going to be low for this flight. All I've got is me and my first officer. Easy. Well, who knows? Maybe, maybe not. Now, when it comes to workloads, crews who anticipate contingencies and the various actions that may be required are better at managing their workloads. Really, this is kind of a fancy way of saying that, well, you've thought ahead. You're working ahead. That classic statement, keeping ahead of the aircraft. Excellent crews are always ahead of that curve. They're ahead of that airplane. They seem to be relaxed. That's because they've devoted the appropriate attention to the required tasks and they've responded without undue delay to any new developments. All of these behaviors are relating to our time and our workload management. Managing our workloads effectively reflect how well a crew can operate. Good crews are going to share the workload and they're going to be careful to avoid being distracted from their essential activities. When it comes to workload, well, all of us have a limited capacity. Quite often, the reason why we might end up with an excessive workload is because, well, information has just become too fast, too quick for us, and we start to get overloaded. Of course, as we start to get overloaded, our ability to process any more incoming information gets reduced as well. If we're overloaded, we tend to start to do things like fixate. We'll concentrate on, well, okay, I've got this task that I've got to fix. You know, for instance, you're flying along and maybe it's in very busy airspace, and all of a sudden the autopilot does something that you're a little bit, what? Meanwhile, the air traffic controller starts to throw at you a ton of various instructions. So, you're already, what did that autopilot just do here? Now, maybe you've suddenly got to do something like reprogram the FMS or something, or a controller is giving you some interesting clearances or commands. You can't really deal with those as they come in. So, during an information overload, you're going to have to do something. Or maybe you just move into these instantly without knowing it. Unimportant tasks get shed. Those tasks that you're doing often end up getting performed at a lower level, less proficiency. Maybe you'll start to look for shortcuts. That's not good at all. This diagram here sort of shows us what's happening as we start to get overloaded and our workload increases. If we happen to have lots of time, well, we've got lots of ability to complete all of our tasks. So our key tasks in green here, we can work on those, but also because we've got extra time, we can start to look at the tasks that are outside of this picture and start to think, well, okay, here's my immediate tasks. Here's all of the tasks that are starting to, well, come into play next. So we can also start to work on these and get ahead of the airplane. But let's imagine that we start to get things like extra, calls from the controllers. Or maybe something in terms of our aircraft state occurs that we didn't quite expect. What starts to happen is, like this flashlight beam here, we start to narrow that flashlight beam. And now we're thinking, all right, I'm just going to concentrate on the tasks at hand. As our pressure increases or our workload increases, what now happens is our flashlight beam becomes narrower. It causes us to start to fixate. And we're like, okay, so out of all of these immediate tasks, something went wrong. This little star over here went wrong, so I'm going to start to focus on this specific star. Then, those immediate important tasks aren't noted anymore. And guess what happens to our pre-planning or thinking ahead? Well, those were so close to being out in the margins before that I've just completely forgot about those entirely. Meanwhile, because all of these tasks are becoming more and more important, we're fixating on only one, we start to find that we just can't keep up with that airplane anymore.